we have with us Apukuna. So this episode is dedicated to basically one of my favorite artists on SoundCloud. It was such a pleasure and a blessing to connect with another dear brother. For those that are tuning in, you know a little bit about me. Music is medicine and medicine is music. It's something I find myself saying again and again. And the medicine that is in the music of Apukuna's mixes is, by far and large, some of my favorite music in the world. These mixes are, safe to say some of my favorite mixes in the world. So I'll put a link to a couple of the mixes in there. At the end of the episode, you will find a gorgeous little mix that he's created just for the Inspired Evolution tribe. So you can get a bit of a yummy little taster in terms of what I'm on about when it comes to Apukuna and his music. He's a beautiful brother. It was really wonderful to connect with him and just to feel into his journey of creativity and how this has all come together, him cultivating a particular sound and how he's found more and more of himself on the journey of finding his sound, obviously. And then from there, the more he stepped into giving himself permission of being even more himself in his expression and sharings with the world, how he's becoming more and more well-received on that path. Music is medicine. If you feel the same way, tune in to this yummy little episode. And please do me a solid, go check out his work on SoundCloud. The links are in the show notes just below. And as always, if you enjoy this video, whenever you get that moment that goes, man, this one's dope, give us a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Love you so much. Your brother, Amrit. Welcome to the Inspired Evolution. And it is an audible treat. Here today, we have with us Jon David, also known affectionately as Apukuna. How are you? Welcome, brother.
Yeah, doing really well. So nice to be with you.
Oh, it is such a treat to have you here. For those tuning into Jon for the first time, well, your loss and my gain, and I'm about to make it your gain. So do yourself a solid. Please, 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 almost stop this podcast. Go over to SoundCloud now. Check out Apukuna, Apukuna. These are, hands down, some of my favorite mixes ever online. The music that Jon puts out literally has transformed my life. And I'm not even just saying that lightly. It has actually transformed my life. And I know that's a massive claim for music, but legitimately when you start listening into these mixes, you will get where I'm coming from. Some of them are called Return of the Bird Tribes, Surrendering Fear into Love. My favorite one is Spirit Bear. If you want to go tune into that one, that is one of my favorites. Traveling into You. He produced one recently called Breath Medicine. And I'm just here saying, look, it's called Breath Medicine 001, which implies there might be hundreds of them on their way, which I'm very grateful for. No pressure, Jon. But yeah, guys, there's a wealth of music there, and check him out on SoundCloud. I just cannot rave enough about it. So when I've had the opportunity, I was like, dude, I've got a podcast and I love this music. It would be an absolute honor to get Jon on. And I reached out and he's been gracious enough to grace us here today. Brother, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you so much. What a nice introduction.
Oh, bro, it is an absolute.
I'm glowing. You can't see it, but it's out there. There's a big glow.
Oh no! Now your ego's not going to fit through the door. Oops.
No. It's medicine for me to just remind me that this is a path I want to keep working on.
Blessings. Thank you for what you do. So how did you get onto like music? Let's just talk about it for a quick sec, because there's so many places we could go in this conversation. But when you tune into your music, there's you can feel just like you really hear and you're really present to creating an energy through the sound. Where did your journey with music palpably begin for you? Surely it's probably been a lifelong thing, but where did it palpably become I'm actually going to start putting together mixes or something like this, or start exploring more music?
Yeah, music's been a part of my life forever, and but really like focusing in on like where this kind of Apukuna sound that you're talking about first came through. It was 3 years ago specifically where the Apukuna name came in, and it was this like it was following on this experience of having like grown up in the Toronto, Canada rave scene from the late 1990s into the early 2000s, and spent, every week going to at least 2-3 clubs a night, like just dancing my face off. And I developed just this real like taste for electronic music, but to kind of like people who drink wine, like they go out and they really try to find that amazing wine and they put it in the cellar. And my relationship to music was like that, like I had these like folders and folders. And of course, back then it was CDs of music that were like really carefully curated. So that was something that's been with me since, like, I'm now 41. So 20 plus years ago that was going on. And the journey into Apukuna really emerged through my relationship with the ceremonial world, working in plant medicine ceremonies, breathwork ceremonies. And I began developing a love for playing ceremonial music on my guitar. I mean, you see some instruments here in my room. I've got other instruments down here. And so that was about 12 years ago where I started to really fall in love with the music of some of the people you've interviewed, like Darpan. He's one of the guys who I play like at least 10 of his songs. Yeah. And I
noticed you played Murray Kyle as well. Yeah.
Well, there's another one, Murray Kyle, who kind of came into my world maybe about 5 years ago now. And so these are the artists who I'm playing in ceremonial settings. And meanwhile, of course, I'm always maintaining this love of electronic music and kind of growing with that. And I just got to this place of realizing, it's time to blend both of these experiences into what became Apukuna, right? And so 3 years ago, the name came to me. I had been toying around with DJing a bit. And, for your listeners who I'm assuming actually don't know what Apukuna means, Apukuna is Quechua. So Quechua are one of the indigenous peoples in what's now Peru and Bolivia and Ecuador. And they're descendants of the Inca. And so the word Apu translates to mountain. But of course, as in a lot of indigenous language, it's not just some sort of geological feature like, we call a mountain in our language. Apu actually means mountain spirit. So there's a lot more embedded in the word Apu. And Apukuna is just plural mountain spirits. And so this name came to me, and I started coming out and playing some parties with it and starting to post mixes on SoundCloud. So my mixes go back to 3 years ago now. And so anyone who goes to the SoundCloud page and listens to my mixes, you'll see the first year and a half or so, the mixes were like a lot more dance floor friendly, so they were that sort of like classic, like, you got an hour and a half of just good dance music. And in this case, the music that was being curated was being inspired by ceremonial medicine music. And so at that time, there were already many producers producing this kind of music. And so even though it was very dance floor friendly, it was still being inspired by that frequency, right? And what really propelled me, and I think, most of these mixes you've just now spoken of, like your favorites, like Spirit Bearer and Return of the Bird Tribes and Surrender, Fear into Love, which really have each become their own little world unto themselves on SoundCloud.
Got a distinct energetic signature to each of them, man.
They're each really different, and the way in which they connect with people is also very different. Like I receive a lot of feedback from people from all over the world, and everyone has a different experience with each mix. And some people just really gravitate to one mix and maybe to a few. And so these ones, the ones you mentioned, those just started emerging. Well, Spirit Bear started, was almost the transition mix. It was like coming into that actually, it was this transition mix of like opening myself up to feeling comfortable to really bring through what felt true to me. And I think what you would hear in the first 7 or 8 mixes I posted on SoundCloud 3 years ago, you'll hear, now that I'm telling you, you'll hear that what's in there is this like, oh, how can I remain accessible to a lot of listeners? And so I was trying to remain accessible, right? And then Spirit Bear was like, you know what? I'm ready to like just let go of trying to be accessible and just drop into my love and do me.
Do me. Yeah, just do me. I like you, bro. Amazing.
Yeah, which is hard, in the DJ world, because there's so much demand for DJs, and the demand generally is, can you get a dance floor moving, right? And luckily, in our global dance community now, there's now so many more spaces that are open to so much more than just that are open to using dance as a spiritual practice, using dance as a way to connect without having to, order a drink at the bar. And, this is where I felt the freedom to start stepping into that. And so Spirit Bear was that transition. And then when this global pandemic that we're in began in early 2020, that's when Return of the Bird Tribes came in. And that's where this new sound that I really have found is my sound. This is the sound I want to keep cultivating. That's when it emerged. And it really emerged very clearly and very quickly. And that's mostly what I've been working with. And as you alluded to there, I've started to expand into some other work now with making breathwork mixes, which we can talk about. But it was really the beginning of this pandemic that really allowed me to sink into my sound. And who knows, a year from now, I could be telling you that, that was then, and now I've got a whole new sound. But this is where I'm at now, and this is kind of what I'm working with. Yeah.
I love it. Can we nerd out a little bit on the fact that your previous mixes, the ones that you alluded to before Spirit Bear, they've been received very well. Like, we've got about 5,000 plays. And I should probably temper this because I'm going to say that, Spirit Bear, as we speak, has 35,000 plays, but then maybe this whole question that I'm about to ask you is moot because maybe 30,000 of those plays were just me.
Maybe close to that.
But what I was going to ask was, has there been some sort of is there a moment of sort of, where you go, I was trying to remain accessible and things were going well, definitely by no means poorly, that's a lot of people tuning into a mix. But then when it's you know what, I'm gonna just do me. And then all of a sudden that is even more well received than you remaining to be accessible. Can we nerd out on that for a moment?
Yeah. I think part of it too is the platform. So my main platform, particularly over this past year and a half, has been SoundCloud, right? Has been posting mixes to an online platform. So right there, the listeners who are tuning into my music are not out on a dance floor. They're often at home, right?
Gotcha.
There. And so I've spent some time reflecting on this. And this is also what helps me design my mixes is I'm designing them for people to actually work with on their own. I get messages from people who are using them in different types of ceremonial work or just kind of meditation movement practice. Or I've got, a friend here in the area who uses it in her treatment room as a Chinese medicine practitioner.
Awesome.
So, but the first place people are going to hear it is in likely a setting where it's just them. They've got their headphones on. So those early mixes, this was me trying to be accessible, but I was also realizing, I'm also just making mixes here and posting them on SoundCloud. This is the kind of music I'm playing maybe at parties for sure. But when it comes to, what has, I think, started to create a little bit of a community around the mixes I'm putting out, it's been the SoundCloud platform. And so, if someone was to invite me to come play a party or a dance music festival, ecstatic dance festival, you're probably going to hear a different sound from me. It's going to evolve and adapt to the setting and the time of day and the people who are there and what the intention is for the event. And so a lot of the sound that's emerged is really very much to do with the platform. That said, I would love to take those mixes and be able to present them in a live setting, which because of the pandemic, I haven't had too many opportunities to do, right? And so this is sort of this birthing. You're kind of catching me at this time where I'm gearing up to kind of go out more into the world, hopefully, and start to bring that sound into some settings that who knows what those are going to look like. But yes, so that's kind of where those two places are. Those sounds are all me, the earlier mixes and the mixes I'm producing now. I played a birthday party 2 weeks ago, and the sounds I was playing 2 weeks ago, they're all over the place. A lot of sounds you don't hear in any of my mixes. I'll play funk, I'll play jazz, I'll play hip hop. I play it all, right? And that was the setting that I was working with there. But the frequency of sound that comes through with the mixes you're talking about, I'll do whatever I can to bring that love and that energy into all of my mixes. And I'm starting to figure out ways how to do that, so make it accessible, draw the dancer or the listener in to something that's familiar maybe, and then kind of blast them with some like love frequencies, right, that they might not know.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for what these potential live constructs could look like, because I first to put both hands up to want to try and check one of these out, even though you're all the way over there in Canada. But yeah, it sounds really intriguing. So man, if you continue to build upon a sound and a frequency, and I like Return of the Bird Tribes was the first mix of yours that I came across, and it was, it was just filled with music from people that, we absolutely adore here as part of a particular type of community, as you alluded to. And yeah, like, I think it's amazing just feeling into how each like song flows into the next, and it's just this natural, smooth transition, but you've actually curated a journey through there. Like, I'd love to sort of just peek inside the artist's head and sort of go, like the journey that you construct, like how much of it is intentional, how much of it is, this is the natural flow, and this is, the songs sort of present themselves into that order. And does that reflect anything back to you on your journey in something like that? Like, as you like, is there an intentionality towards the natural story? Is there a story arc in there?
Yeah, really nice question. I learn a lot about myself through putting these mixes together. And one of the things that like I've always recognized about myself when I get reflections from a lot of the people around me is I'm very like meticulous with a lot of what I do. And sometimes I look at that as a bit of a burden. It's like, oh, wow, like everything I'm doing is like, has to be this way. And I put everything into like a neat, nice order. And it can be sometimes a burden. I can notice that part of myself, and sometimes it's a burden to other people. But it's so funny to like watch how that part of myself that I find to be important has made its way into how these mixes come together, because it's actually only been just recently where I've started to realize, this is what makes these mixes possible, is this meticulousness. And maybe a year or two from now, I won't require that meticulous nature to put these mixes together, but that's what's required now. And I'm able to see that now as a gift, because I don't think I can put these mixes together without that part of myself. And so I've sort of fallen in love with that part of myself without, having to look at it and be like, oh, there's that part of myself again. That's always taking so much time to do anything, which is all to say that these mixes take a lot of time to put together. I can tell you right now, like I just finished one just on Thursday last week. So this is a week ago now. I finished one. It was from an invitation from Echoes from Venus. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. It's a little collective from Switzerland. They've got such a beautiful following, and they put out podcasts, mixes of all of my favorite producers. And I got this beautiful invite from them to put one together. And it probably took about 5 full days of curating the folders and sitting with the music 8 hours a day, at least for 5 days. And my process that has emerged for these mixes has been like, what are the sounds that are resonating with me at this time? And that's usually what starts the folder. And often those are the new sounds I'm coming across, like the new releases that I'm getting in my inbox. And that will start to populate a folder. And I might end up with maybe 30 or 40 tracks in there. And then, usually from those 30 or 40 tracks, there's a bit of an energy that fills the space that seems like, oh, this is kind of what's wanting to come through. And then I'll dive into my crates, which nowadays are my, computer folders, my computer folder crates. And I'll look at like my years and years of music, like usually going back about 10 years, and start to collect sounds that kind of work within that new energy that's coming through. So all of these new songs get some new friends in the folder, which are the 10 years of music I've been collecting. And so this past mix I did, it's about to be released, maybe by the time you release this podcast, it'll be out there. That folder started with 200 tracks. Like I literally had 200 songs in there without any idea how that order was going to go. And then at that point, that meticulousness kind of gets pushed aside, and then everything else just kind of comes through on its own at that point. So, you know, usually a few songs will emerge as this is what's going to open the space of the mix. And once that settles in, that usually sets the trajectory for the rest of the mix. And it doesn't just flow from the beginning into the end. Like normally my process has been, I will create small little micro mixes. I'm like, you know, I listen to this one track and I'm like, okay, this is going to go really well with this. And I'll create maybe 3 or 4 songs. And I'm like, these 4 songs are sticking together. And this is how I think a lot of DJs prepare their mixes. It doesn't just flow from one to the next. It's like a bringing together of little mini mixes. And that's kind of what happens for me is I'll have this little like collection of 4 or 5 songs that, okay, this works together here. This works together over here. And then what starts to happen is those 5 or 4 songs get like moved around in an order, right? And that's how these mixes emerge. They emerge like that. And but yeah, I mean, I say it took me 5 days, but it could have been more. It's a lot of work, and I think it's the amount of work I'm putting into it that I feel is what's being received, you know, and I feel like, you know, a lot of the feedback I'm getting is sort of acknowledging that effort, and so that feedback I'm getting is like a feedback loop that keeps me committed to that approach, you know, that I have. Yeah,
it's a blessing, isn't it? So I'd love to tune into, because I'm like, I know SoundCloud and I'm not sure how much there is I'm just not sure how much financial reimbursement there is for the sound through SoundCloud. Obviously it serves well for people to connect with you and your sound, but how much of it, like, you know, I think, just following the meticulousness that you described, feeling into just, you know, I think I'm trying to ask the question for the listener that is, you know, probably feels into the sound and goes, oh, it's amazing because it's so polished and it's so well put together. But sort of granting that person that's listening in, that's always wanted to sort of create something, to give them permission to sort of feel like, and it's potentially not just about making a career out of it. Like how much of this is a career and how much of this is you following your passions, I guess is the question I'm asking you.
Yeah, well, like I say, like you're catching me at a bit of a transition moment in my life, you know, which I think is really in line with what seems to be the theme of your podcast, right? This inspired evolution. And for me, my relationship to music and my work as a musician and a DJ is still a small part of my life that is able to sustain, you know, the things I love to do and spend money on, right? It's but my dream is to keep deepening into this, and so that is happening. So like, you know, if I was to look at myself 3 years ago, this was very much on the side, wasn't trying to really put too many mixes out, and now I'm saying to myself, okay, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do. And you know, for me, what my goal is to transition fully into this, and to also bring in the other piece that I was mentioning too, which is I play guitar, and you know, this is the year 2021 that I'm going to release some songs that I'm going to be recording. I've written quite a few songs that's going to be coming out this year, and you know, so this is all my dream to kind of move out of what's been my other work, which is we were talking about before the podcast, has been as a journalist. You know, this is what's mostly been my work for 15, 20 years. I've hosted podcasts, I've done television, I've done written a book, and I've decided, music is my next love. I mean, that was my passion too, and it still is, and I'm still doing that work. And this is where I kind of want to be. And it's been a nice incubation period this past year and a half, because there hasn't really been too much opportunity to come out of the sort of creative cave that is this room the teabag I'm in right now.
For sure, right? Yeah.
And so, you know, this little global community that's been emerging around the Apukuna sound has been that incubating of what I'm hoping will be the opportunity to come and connect in what's a much more powerful space, I think, which is the space where we gather together. And And so that is actually on the horizons, right? I mean, a lot of these groups that have been inviting me to do podcasts, they host events in different parts of the world. I've received a few invitations to go play at Burning Man, if that ever happens again, invitations to go play in South America. And so, you know, what's nice though is like, okay, if this is where I want to go, now I need to prepare myself for it. And so I'm in that place of preparing myself for it, because this is I'm a new DJ. This is all new for me. And I'm working to bring myself out into the world in this way. And the nice thing though, you know, as far as like putting all this time in is for me, this isn't just about, as it is for a lot of artists, it isn't just about trying to find a vocation, a new career. You know, for me, this is what nourishes me, to put this music out. Like what I try to do with the music is create mixes that are actually first and foremost for myself, and then just share them as a gift. And if what wants to happen with this is it wants to then pull me in that direction, in this direction, you know, I'll listen and probably say yes and allow that to just flow however it wants. But first and foremost, it starts as something that's a gift for me and a gift to offer. And, it's turning into it. It's turning into something I think that will help me transition more into this work full time, and maybe get a bigger studio so I don't have so much equipment in here to pack together. Right?
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, because you articulated it so well. It's very similar to how I feel about the podcast. Even, you know, it's like following in the intuition of what really feels good for you, and trusting that, you know, just sharing that and gifting that to the world and seeing where it goes. And if anything flows from there is, so following your passions. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask do a little bit of a rewind and go deep into something, which was, you know, we often have these parts of ourselves that we sort of go, that's annoying. And you mentioned, you know, the meticulousness, and I'm sure it's got its blessings and it's also got its challenges, which you mentioned. But the thing that came through for me was, you know, sometimes we carry these things around for quite some time, not realizing the boon of that virtue to some degree. And then only like you said, it's only been like, you know, potentially in the last 3 years, or, you know, when you started putting this together, it's like, that meticulousness, it's really come to a head. Like now I can really see, you know, like I put up with that for a long time to reap this reward, you know. And I'm just tuning into like, like just, you know, sometimes we carry around certain elements of ourselves and besides ourselves, kind of, why am I carrying that? You know, like, why is that part of my frequency? Only to realize potentially down the track that it's something that actually really serves us. Is that part of your experience? Is that?
That's been my experience, you know, and I think I've tried to find a balance with giving myself over to the reflection. So if the reflection is like, this part of myself, we'll say my meticulousness or whatever it might be, because there's certain other qualities that I have and that we all have that we
all have them. We all have them. I probably got double what most people have, but go on.
Well, we get to see them, right? Like when we're out there, like connecting with each other. And, you know, I live in an intentional community here among 75 people, like 24 houses, and I live in a small community. And so I've had lots of experiences for like reflection of who and what I am. And so I've tried to strike a balance between like really listening to what that reflection is and taking that in and saying, you know, what can I learn from this reflection? Is this something that I can grow from? And then at the same time, also holding as much as possible the idea that I'm not going to give my power over to that reflection. So it's really about, like, for me, recognizing that how I see myself is entirely up to me. It's not up to anybody else. I'm not going to give my power over to anyone else. And so with this particular piece, it's being able to kind of reaffirm itself through my music and through the Apukuna sound, it's being recognizing that, you know what, like I'm proud that I kind of stuck with this despite all the reflections that seem to like annoy people because I'm so meticulous with things. You know what, like I'm going to call this my superpower. And often, you know, a lot of the kind of work I do on myself and in community and in ceremonial settings, a lot of that work is looking at these parts of ourselves and starting to love them more. And so that's kind of been my process of just like realizing, you know what, this is my power. And some of those things, yeah, they're gonna like rub people in ways that are gonna be uncomfortable for them, but you know, that's their journey. And look, you know, it's now working for me over here. and
it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. Yeah.
So, you know, I appreciate it. And then I'm also open to the possibility that it's this meticulousness that will also then accelerate me into a place of not having to be meticulous with it. You know, maybe it's my like training wheels to get to a place where I can just let whatever wants to flow through without it. And I'm open to that too. And I actually can see that possibility happening, right? It's like, you know, I'm around people who are trying to learn instruments all the time. And, you know, often people who are playing the type of music I'm playing and the music we listen to, often the most crystalline sounds that come through are those musicians that like didn't go take lessons, they didn't do any training, they're just like, they're able to play anything, right? And then those of us who can't play are always like, oh, I wish that could happen for me. And so, you know, a lot of folks, like a friend I was chatting with the other day was telling me about her experience with learning music and learning guitar. And there was this feeling of resistance to having to maybe learn a chord and learn chords. Like they really just wanted to go and play. And these pieces are like training wheels, you know, they're little training wheels for us to get to that place of allowing things to flow. So I think where my work is right now with the Apukuna music that I'm putting out is I'm still kind of in a bit of a training wheel process. Like I'm learning new software, new controller. And in order for me to do what I'm doing, it has to be the way it is right now. And eventually, you know, I'm hoping this machine I use behind me is going to be much more of like an instrument than it is a device I need to understand and take apart and figure out. And so I'm only like a year using this particular piece of equipment. And so I'm still kind of on a journey with this as well.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was super personal, but it was super open. So thank you so much for sharing the insights of that. I think that's really useful for those that are tuning in. So I wanted to ask, like, if you had potentially a couple of questions, like if you, like a dream mix, like is there anything like, do you like, is there a dream mix in your head that's brewing, or is it the next mix is already, like you said, is cultivated through that process of there's new music coming in and we feel the energy and the inspiration around that? Or has there started to be like, you know what, I'd love to, you know, potentially get, you know, X, Y, and Z together to produce specific music and sounds for your own mixes? Or is that potentially where the birth of, you know, you bringing out some of your own music with the guitar is, I'm looking for a particular frequency and sound coming through? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I have some dreams for sure, of like where I want this sound to go. And I mean, the first one that I'm really excited to work on is the one you talked about earlier, right? These breath medicine mixes. And so, you know, this is something I'm looking to start doing like frequently, like at least once a month, bring out a new breathwork mix. And
awesome.
It's optimistic, but it's going to be my goal. I got one sort of brewing right now, like 002, right?
Yay.
Is going to be coming out. And it, first and foremost, it's like for my own breathwork practice. Like I have this mix, the one that's out there on SoundCloud that I've been using now for a year. And it's my go-to mix that like helps me through my breathwork practice. And I generally do like a 45-minute breathwork practice at least once a week. And I just did one today and decided, okay, I got to start doing this every day, because part of every time I do it is now I'm starting to listen to, you know, what wants to happen with the music in this moment, you know, because with the particular breath I work with, which is similar to like holotropic breathing, breathwork, there's a very specific flow that the music wants to go in my experience. And just moments where it's like, okay, once you kind of push through the first part, like the climbing of the mountain, you know, then the music wants to come into this frequency and wants to end over here. And so I'm starting to just hear new information as to what wants to emerge in these mixes. And so that's been really exciting, because breathwork is becoming, I think, more popular than it was a few years ago.
Oh, for sure.
And, you know, if you go out there and look for breathwork music, it's out there. but there's not a lot of like really constructed mixes
Mm.
that are out there yet. And so I'm seeing that as an opportunity to just kind of fill that space and offer that. And so that really gets me excited. And I've started to be able to practice it in breathwork sessions. So I'm leading breathwork sessions now, and I'm able to like tune into how the music is actually affecting a room of people. Like, so this isn't me now just making a mix and sending it out on SoundCloud. I'm now like in a room with people, we're in a circle, and I'm leading them with my music through that experience. And so this is sort of where I see maybe the Apukuna sound going, is I can be showing up at events and I can offer my dance music mixes, I can offer maybe journeys, and I could also offer breathwork sessions. And so this is kind of one of my dreams, right? And then the other is to start to integrate my guitar playing into my music. And so this is, I geek out at home all the time with my guitar, you know, so like I plug my guitar right into my controller back here, and I've got a microphone, and I haven't released any of that yet, you know, onto SoundCloud. Like for me right now, it's just a fun hobby, and I've got a little playlist of like, oh yeah, this song from this producer works really well with this song that I play. And, you know, my dream is to be able to be in front of a room of people or a stage or a beach, you know, and be able to play these mixes, bring the guitar in, bring my voice in, and start to really like integrate all of this.
Yeah.
This is the goal, and this is what I've been working on. And I know, you know, there's quite a few people out there doing this now. And of course, anytime something like that happens, there's always these other instruments that want to come in, and people and voices. And so I've started to play around with some recordings of a friend of mine. Her and I have been playing together. She plays the handpan.
Oh, awesome.
I've taken some like loops of her handpan and my guitar and started to create just sounds that sound like, you know what, that's a track that might be able to be released. And so this is starting to like emerge as well, as like perhaps the Apukuna sound will turn into something that is not just about mixes, but about producing songs as well,
with some live elements in there as well. That's beautiful.
Live elements, yeah.
I'm so glad I asked. And just another kind of reflection back to you. Like we were speaking about this. My wife gave birth. Everything's turned into one long day because I had no sleep at all. But I was going to say last week, but I think it was the week before. It's been about 10 days. And yeah, the breathwork mix was on during her labor.
No way.
Yeah, totally, bro. Of course. And this is what I mean. Like your music changing my life. I'm not just saying that. Like, you know, and Spirit Bear is her favorite mix as well. And so yeah, you know, that was playing loud and clear during the birth process as well. So
that is so incredible.
We really, really, really appreciate, you know, and you know, especially just thinking about, you know, how much sound can support us and how important breath is during those critical moments of life. You know, it's been pure medicine for us. The expression of your music and the way it's come through, man. I'm so grateful that you have been so just dedicated to music and following that path, and you know, finding yourself you know, trusting your process and going into the depths of yourself to sort of share, you know, what's present. And again, you know, like I love falling into the journey of like, you know, before it was this much for others and this much for myself, and really now I'm just coming home to me and sharing what matters most to me, and you know, just feeling how that's being received across the world. And you know, just the inspiration that sparks in all of us to do more us, you know, just be more authentically ourselves and just trust that we'll be better received is such a blessing. And then obviously the jewel of all of that is the music that we get to listen to on SoundCloud, man. Thank you so much for what you do. Is there anything that you wanted to share with the audience before I let you go today? Anything that's primed and ready for you?
Well, you know what I'm smiling about inside right now is the possibility of creating like a series of birth medicine mixes.
Well, I'm intending on having more kids, so
yeah, you know, like I mean, breathing through labor, both for you and your partner, I'm sure it was important. But like, what if, you know, I could make a mix that's like very specific to that process
ceremony
that
and
gets me
that
excited.
journey of birthing. Yeah, beautiful.
Because there's so many ceremonies in our lives, right? And this is what I want to make music for, is just the ceremony of life. And I love the idea of making something for that process, for that beautiful entering of life into the world.
Well, even just that as a kind of reflection back to you, like it helped us connect deeper, like even just having your music on in our life, and, you know, at home, and, you know, the way we connect to it, it has encouraged us to have more ceremonial context in our life, you know, and that is literally medicine in our lives. So yeah, it's a beautiful prayer that you're holding, and I'm really grateful for it. Brother Bear,
well, I love how you've reached out to me, and like it means a lot to be able to kind of share my journey at this point, and love the way, you know, the music's touched you. And you know, so much there's so much fuel that comes from your relationship to the music that keeps me going. So thank you so much.
Oh, touch wood. Thank you. And again, I want to thank you for your time and energy here again today. But obviously we know that it's not just today's little moment that informed this conversation, it's a lifetime's of work. So thank you so much for the way you show up in the world. And for those tuning in, normally I put in a whole bunch of links to a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to be super selfish, and I'm just going to put in the link to Spirit Bear, that particular mix. Maybe Return of the Bird Tribes too, because I really love that one too. It's like, but it's so hard to pick, but like those two are my absolute favorites. So you get a real taste of what I'm talking about. Please go check them out on SoundCloud. Yeah, super easy to follow. Apukuna Jon here on SoundCloud. And yeah, brother, it is an absolute blessing to have had you here today. And on behalf of myself, the Inspired Evolution Tribe, the community here in Australia, man, wishing you all the best on what's coming up.
Yeah, big love to you and your family. Thank you.
place we originate from. Open your heart, stay on the path. There is more than this dimension, more for us to mention, more than we've imagined. May every bit of serenity have care on the face of a journey from the home. Open your heart, love in a flash. There is worth to our intention, purpose to ascension, more than we've imagined. You are enough, we are enough. Welcome to the queendom. This is where we be from. We are here to love. We are here to love. Love is what we're made of. It is time to wake up. You are enough. We are enough. Welcome to the queendom. This is where we be from. We are here to love. We are here to love. Love is what we're made of. It is time to wake up. You are enough. We are enough. Welcome to the queendom. This is where we be from. We are here to love. We are here to love. Love is what we're made of. It is time to wake up. You are enough. We are enough. Welcome to the queendom. This is where we be from. We are here to love. We are here to love. Love is what we're made of.
Love and happiness, yeah. Something that can make you do wrong, make you do right. Yeah. Love and happiness. Yeah. Something that can make you do wrong, make you do right. Yeah. Love.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment. And if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.